Thanks for staying with us in the conversation. We're turning our attention now to Tunisia, where a strike by the country's largest trade union has grounded the country to a halt, despite last-minute attempts by President Kais Saied to prevent it from taking place. The Tunisian General Labour Union called for the country's 3 million public sector workers to down tools, and it said most took part on Thursday, which led to closed airports, public transport, ports, and government office.
Several hundred employees from state companies gathered in front of the UGTT's headquarters in the capital, Tunis, to hold a rally against the Tunisian government's economic reform plans, the declared reason for the protest. The workers protested President Kais Saied's decision to freeze wages and cut subsidies as part of the government's deal to secure a $4 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund. However, the strike also came as a continuing political crisis escalated in Tunisia, with opposition growing to what has been perceived as attempts by President Saied to entrench himself in power since he suspended the country's parliament last July. Now, joining us live on the conversation from the Tunisian capital, Tunis, is Gaia Ben Mbarak. She's a journalist. Thank you very much, Gaia, for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Gaia, what's your reaction to the strike by the UGTT, and what was the level of compliance?
Yesterday the reaction has actually been split up between supporters, of course, of UGTT and members of the public sector, employees of the public sector who complied with the decision. The percentage, according to the UGTT number, reached 96.22% in all public sector branches, even reaching 100%, for example, in transportation institutions as metro and trains and even movement in airports have been halted. However, what I saw personally outside in the street is the fact that some Tunisians also did kind of buy into the rhetoric portrayed by the government, which is mainly the rhetoric about this strike being harmful to the country, hitting the economy in a hard way. The government alleged yesterday that this strike would cost the country 1 billion Tunisian dinars. Some Tunisians did say that it is not the time. The country is already drowning in debt and is struggling to make employees in the public sector, especially, get their salaries every month. However, this is kind of a general, usual rhetoric that any government in Tunisia have portrayed, considering and knowing the major impact that any strike made by the General Tunisian Labour Union would have, and consider the fact that UGTT is indeed the biggest national organization in the country.
All right, thank you, Gaia. Now, looking at the impact of the strike, we also understand that the government had tried to prevent the strike from taking place, but was unsuccessful. Now, what has been the government's response to the strike as it has happened now? And do you think there'll be any dialogue between the government and the UGTT labor force?
Well, actually, the government did say that they did go into negotiations with the UGTT. However, UGTT actually said that there were no actual negotiations in order for them to meet the socioeconomic demands made by the labor union organization. And these demands, which mainly concern socioeconomic requests regarding the purchasing power of Tunisians and regarding also upcoming talks and potential talks with the IMF, regarding especially the attempt to cut subsidies which allow Tunisians to live on a day-to-day basis. So far, the government and the president himself have considered this move unpatriotic on several occasions. Ministers belonging to the cabinet have also said that, and we've seen a very firm response from UGTT yesterday in front of UGTT headquarters downtown Tunis, calling out these claims and saying we are patriotic, whether they like it or not. And these type of measures we are taking because it was a dead end, and the negotiations with the government were only for show, and nothing actually took place.
Now, Gaia, since the July 25th power grab of last year, we've seen President Kais Saied his behavior. He's been very bullish about everything with little or no opposition. It's almost like a one-man show. Now, can President Kais continue negotiations with the IMF and pass political and economic reforms that he wants without the UGTT's backing? How influential is the UGTT?
Actually, there is no way any IMF talks would take place without the support and without having UGTT on the table. This is a given fact that all Tunisians know and that all international actors know. UGTT is a major actor inside Tunisia. Actually, many people consider UGTT as the safeguard of the country, and people consider that we are lucky to have UGTT. So far, the government did not show and give any signs that it is going to be inclusive of UGTT in its
sorry to interrupt you, Gaia, but President Kais Saied has been getting away with almost everything since July last year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, because he still somehow has support on the streets. So yesterday, like just to give an example, I was going out like with the taxi driver, and he said, "How dare UGTT speak about the president in that way?" He is still seen as the only political alternative at this point because Tunisians lost faith in any political parties and any political endeavors, and so far since July 25th, no political party, or there was no even any initiative that presented itself as an alternative to Kais Saied's behavior. So that's why, to put it in the way you said it, he has been getting away with it because there is still some support like on the street to his actions. It has been diminishing, that is true, but so far the opposition remains restrained to specific people and specific individuals. And definitely yesterday's strike was a challenge first of its kind that we've seen since July 25th.
Okay, now, Gaia, with little or no opposition, in May 2020, while on the visit to France, Saied shocked Tunisians and others when he declared the situation in Tunisia is not good for foreign investment. He also slammed the work of international institutions and rating agencies. So in your own view, how would you rate President Kais Saied in handling the Tunisian economy?
So far, this is not only like my words, but lots of Tunisians, even former supporters of Kais Saied or people who gave him the benefits of the doubt at the beginning, are seeing him as a failure in terms of handling the current economic situation of Tunisia, because people see him as someone who has been focusing so much on the constitution, so much on the technicalities regarding changing the political system, but actually while talking about the economy, he did not give any alternative, and any endeavor he had taken, even his government have been considered not something that would actually solve the current situation in Tunisia. Tunisians in recent days and recent months, we have been seeing a degradation in purchasing powers of Tunisia. We have been seeing a rise in inflation rate, and this is something that is portrayed in the prices of food, prices of gas, and prices of rent in the country. This is something that definitely people out there who have nothing to do with politics and who even do not care who's in power do know and do depict in their daily lives. The fact that the president still thinks that the problem is political and the problem is constitutional is definitely a cause of lots of worry to lots of Tunisians, because we know now the country is really hanging in there, barely waiting for a bailout from the IMF.
Now, Gaia, just before we wrap things up on the conversation, President Kais Saied, a former legal academician and scholar himself, did say that the 2014 constitution is not eternal and the Tunisian people have rejected the constitution. He's also proposing a new constitution. So my question to you is, in what way is the 2014 constitution inadequate, and will the new constitution that is proposing, will it address the needs and yearnings of Tunisians?
I mean, yes, it is definitely the 2014 constitution is not perfect. Like lots of people say that there are lots of lackings in this constitution, especially in the fact that in the phase following the drafting and the passing of that constitution, there were limitations in terms of trying to match that constitution to other legal texts and in Tunisia, which actually made lots of those legal texts, some of it which even dates back to French colonial era, have not been rectified. And people saw it as a problem. However, some people, and Saied himself is forgetting that that constitution was the product and the fruit of a long process of consensus and the long talks. Now the alternative constitution that Saied is given is not going to be somewhat like a result of consensus, because it is going to be drafted only by one person and a few individuals from a very limited circle of his friends, basically, and the text is not going to be plausible for any doubts or any criticism, as Tunisians are going to be called to vote yes or no on the day of referendum, and not actually vote article by article, word by word on the constitution, and have a discussion in public, transparent, and accessible to all Tunisians. This is the issue that we see now, and this is definitely somewhat, it is a strong sign of an onset of dictatorship.
All right, thank you so much, Gaia Ben Mbarak, for joining us all the way from Tunis and shedding so much light on the strike that is going on right now by the UGTT. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
My pleasure.
And that's where we'll draw the curtains for today's edition of The Conversation. Of course, this week's edition of The Conversation. Do join us again next week. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Benga Borowa. Have a nice weekend.